Riftwalkers Radio is waiting for you.
Just step through the rift
and discover a world of fantasy like you've never heard before.
All right, get ready to be transported to the Scottish Highlands. We're diving into a world of magic and folklore today.
That's right, we're going deep into some Sieniki stories from the book Heather and Broom.
This book, it really drew me in.
It's something else, isn't it? Those stories have this way of making you feel like you're right there.
Yeah, like you're hearing them whispered around a crackling fire centuries ago.
Absolutely, and that oral tradition, it's a big part of what makes them so captivating.
Right. Imagine these stories being passed down for generations before anyone even thought to write them down.
Exactly. Traveling from village to village, from one storyteller to the next.
It's like holding a piece of history in your hands.
It really is. And speaking of history, the book makes a really interesting distinction between Highland and Lowland storytelling.
Oh, yeah, that caught my eye, too.
It's subtle, but there's a definite difference.
Right. It's like these Highland tales, they have this almost musical quality to them.
Yes. That's a great way to put it.
Like they were meant to be chanted or sung.
It's that Gaelic lilt, that rhythm and cadence that pulls you right in.
Totally. You can almost hear the voice of a Snaki weaving the tale.
And the relationship with the fairies, it's different, too.
Oh, how so?
Well, in the Highland stories, the fairies are a bit more, I don't know, integrated into the everyday lives of the people, if that makes sense.
Interesting. So it's not just these distant, otherworldly beings, but more like neighbors almost.
Right, exactly. Neighbors with a bit of a magical edge, of course.
Speaking of the tellers of these tales, I was fascinated by these Senakis.
Oh, they were incredible figures, really.
What was their role exactly? Were they just storytellers, or was there more to it?
Well, they were definitely storytellers, but think of them as more than just entertainers.
Okay, more like what?
They were like walking, talking history books.
Oh, I like that.
They were the keepers of Scotland's past, entrusted with preserving both historical events and the rich tapestry of folklore.
So they were like historians, but also artists.
Precisely. And their role wasn't static either. It evolved over time.
Really? How so?
Well, and first, you had monks diligently documenting history.
Okay, makes sense.
Then you had bards, singing tales of heroes and battles.
Oh, wow, like a Celtic rock concert?
Oh, something like that. And finally, they became these wandering storytellers, masters of adapting their tales to captivate any audience.
Wait, so they tailored their stories to whoever was listening?
Exactly. They weren't just reciting memorized scripts.
Wow, that's incredible.
They were true performers, using their voices and gestures to bring those stories to life.
It makes you wonder, what kind of stories would they have told in a crowded market versus a quiet fireside gathering?
It really does. And the book mentions something that really made me think.
What's that?
It suggests that the rise of cars, the cinema, even the radio played a part in their decline.
Oh, wow. That's kind of ironic, isn't it?
It really is. These new forms of entertainment, they brought the world closer in some ways, but they may have also led to the fading of those intimate gatherings where stories were shared and passed down.
It really makes you think about how technology shapes our relationship with storytelling, even today.
Absolutely. Okay, enough pondering the big picture for now. Let's dive into a specific tale that really captured my imagination.
Okay, which one?
The Elpane bird, the stolen princess, and the brave knight. Have you gotten to that one yet?
Oh, yeah, that one's fantastic. You've got a princess, a brave knight, a magical bird. It's got everything.
It really does, but what elevates this story is that journey through fantastical lands.
Right, the land of ice, the fiery land, and the land of birds.
Exactly. Each one ruled by a different bird. A snowy owl, a black raven king, and then the Elpane bird's own domain, a golden castle.
Wait a minute, each land ruled by a bird.
It's amazing, right? It's not just a rescue mission. It's a symbolic journey through different aspects of nature.
I never thought of it that way. That's really interesting.
And you have to remember, in Highland culture, nature wasn't just a backdrop.
Right. It was a powerful force.
Yeah, exactly. To be respected, even revered.
So these bird kings, maybe they represent different forces of nature that humans had to learn to live with.
That's a great interpretation. And the Elpane bird, with its shape-shifting abilities, it could symbolize that ability to move between those worlds, to understand and harness the power of nature.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's like the story is giving us a glimpse into how the Highlanders saw the world, this interconnectedness between humans and nature.
And remember, this story was probably told and retold countless times, shaping how people viewed their relationship with the natural world.
It's more than just entertainment. It's a way to transmit knowledge and beliefs.
Exactly. Okay, enough with the serious stuff for a moment. Let's lighten things up a bit.
Okay, what do you have in mind?
How about the woman who flummoxed the fairies? That one's a real hoot.
Oh, yeah, the baker. That one had me laughing out loud.
It's a classic trickster tale, full of humor and mischief.
Those fairies, they were so desperate for her cakes.
They were absolutely enchanted by them, and they thought they could just, kidnap her and make her bake for them exclusively.
But they didn't realize who they were dealing with.
No, she was way too clever for them.
Oh, the scene where she keeps sending them back for more stuff, it's brilliant.
I know, right?
First the cat, then the dog, then the baby, then the husband.
It's utter chaos,
Yeah.
and the fairies are running themselves ragged, trying to keep up with her demands.
But she's not being cruel. She genuinely feels bad for them.
She even promises to leave them a cake every weekend.
Talk about turning a bad situation to your advantage. It's like, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade and a cake for the fairies.
And she finds a bag of gold with that cake. It's almost like her cleverness is rewarded.
Right, like, don't mess with this baker. She's got the fairies on her side.
It's a reminder that sometimes a little bit of wit and a good sense of humor can go a long way, especially when you're dealing with the fairy folk.
All right, ready to meet a laird with a heart of gold.
Always. Those are some of my favorite stories.
Well, this laird, he's a bit too generous for his own good.
Oh, I know the type.
His tenants are taking advantage of him, not paying their rent, and he's on the verge of financial ruin.
Classic good guy in a tough spot, so what happens?
Well, he stumbles upon a clan of brownies who have been evicted from their home.
Oh no, poor brownies.
I know, right? So what does he do? He invites them to live in his castle, of course.
Of course he does. With a heart that big, what else would he do?
And you know what?
It would-
These brownies, they're not just freeloaders. They're known for being hardworking and practical.
Right, like little magical handymen.
Exactly. And the head brownie, Latchy Tosh, he becomes the laird's factor.
Like his estate manager.
Exactly. And Lackey, he sees right through those tenants who are trying to pull a fast one.
So he gets those finances in order.
With a little brownie magic, they turn the entire estate around.
Wow, it's amazing how these stories weave together themes of kindness, practicality, and even a bit of magic.
It really is, and it makes you think about what made a good leader in Highland society. Was it just generosity, or was there more to it?
Right, maybe it was about finding that balance between kindness and wisdom.
A balance, that's a good way to put it. Okay, are you ready to meet a lass who everyone thought was fearless?
Oh, I love those stories, the ones with the twists.
This lass, she lives alone in the forest, everyone's scared of her.
But she's secretly terrified of something.
You got it.
I can't wait to hear this.
All the village lads want to court her, but she's having none of it. Then she has this run-in with a goblin in a mill.
Wait, a goblin in a mill. What kind of mill are we talking about here?
You know, the book doesn't really go into detail about the mill itself, just that it's old and abandoned, deep in the forest.
Ooh, I like it. One of those places where strange things happen.
Right, so she encounters this goblin, and what does she do? She faces him down.
No way. So she really is fearless.
Well, almost. She defeats him with her quick wit, and the whole time she's completely calm, like battling goblins is just another Tuesday night.
Wow, she sounds like a true Highland heroine. Resourceful and unfazed by danger.
She is. But there is a twist, it turns out. She's absolutely terrified of mice.
No.
You're kidding.
Nope, mice are her kryptonite.
That's hilarious and kind of endearing, you know?
It is. It reminds us that even the bravest people have their vulnerabilities.
Exactly. And sometimes even the smallest things can expose those hidden fears.
And for her, it's this fear that leads her to realize that maybe she does need someone to look after her. Someone who's not afraid of a little mouse or two.
Aw, that's sweet. It's like even the toughest among us sometimes need a helping hand.
Exactly. It makes her much more relatable.
So are we ready to leave the forests and head out to sea?
Oh, I love a good sea tale. What do you have in mind?
How about a story about a selkie king and his daughter, the daughter of the king Ron? Have you read that one yet?
Oh, yeah, that one's a bit of a heartbreaker.
It is, but it's also so beautifully written.
It's got that classic selkie lore, those creatures who can shift between human and seal form. Yes, exactly. And this particular tale, it really dives into the complexities of love and the consequences of our actions.
Right, like what are we willing to sacrifice for those we love?
Exactly, and how do we navigate those ever-changing tides of relationships, especially when bound by powerful oaths?
Oh, speaking of oaths, this story has one of those, right? The promise the young lord makes to the selkie king.
Oh yes, if he ever speaks harshly to his daughter, She has to return to the sea.
It's such a heavy promise to make, and you just know it's not going to end well.
It's like a ticking time bomb. You're just waiting for that moment when he slips up.
And he does, right. Even though he loves her, he gets frustrated and the words come out.
And that's it. She's gone. Back to the sea, leaving her human life behind.
It's heartbreaking, but it also speaks to how seriously these promises were taken in these tales.
Absolutely. They weren't just words. They had real power, magical and emotional power.
It makes you think about the promises we make in our own lives and the weight they carry.
So what happens to the young lord after she leaves?
He's devastated, of course. He goes into seclusion for a while.
I can only imagine the guilt, the regret.
But when he finally emerges, he's a changed man.
For the better.
Oh, yeah. He's humbled, he realizes the depth of his loss, and he becomes a much wiser and kinder ruler.
It's like his grief transforms him, makes him a better leader.
And the ending, it's so bittersweet.
It is. They leave it open to interpretation, don't they?
Yeah. Did he find her again? Did he sail off to be with her? Or did he stay and rule, forever haunted by his loss?
It's up to the listener to decide, and I love that.
Me too. It makes the story linger in your mind long after you've finished reading it.
Okay, enough with the tearjerkers for now. Are you ready for a tale that's a little more lighthearted?
Oh, always. Bring it on. What do we have next?
How about a story about a lass who can spin, weave, and sew like nobody's business? Or at least that's what her father claims.
Oh, yes. Spin, weave, wear. That's a good one. It's got a little bit of everything. Magic, humor, and a touch of romance.
And a talking cat.
Oh, right. How could I forget the talking cat?
It's one of my favorite parts of this story.
So remind me, how does it start again?
Well, you've got this lass. She's a skilled weaver.
Right. But her father, he's a bit of a bragger.
He is. He goes around telling everyone that she can spin, weave, and sew a whole new outfit in a single day.
Oh, yeah. And word gets back to the king, right?
He does. And he summons her to his court for a weaving contest.
And she's stuck. She can't possibly live up to her father's boasts.
So what does she do?
Well, she has a secret weapon, her talking cat.
Ah, the talking cat. I knew he'd come into play.
And the cat, he's friends with a coven of witches.
Of course he is. Who else would a talking cat be friends with?
So she enlists their help, and they agree to give her a magic spell to help her win the contest.
But there's a catch. Right.
Always a catch with those witches.
What is it this time?
She has to complete 3 tasks.
What kind of tasks?
They're pretty tricky. She has to collect thistledown under a dark moon, get wheat straw from the person's barn, and black thorns from a bush at midnight.
Oh, those sound hard. Especially if you're trying to be sneaky about it.
And there's one more condition. She can't speak a word from the moment she enters the king's castle until she returns home.
Whoa, that's tough, especially in a royal court, with all those people around.
I know, right? It's like a recipe for disaster, but also kind of hilarious.
I can't wait to see how it all plays out.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait for part 2 to find out.
Welcome back. I'm on the edge of my seat here, waiting to hear how our silent weaver gets on with those impossible tasks.
Oh, she manages. It's quite the adventure, let me tell you.
I bet. Collecting thistledown under a dark moon.
Sneaking into the parson's barn for straw.
And braving the kirkyard at midnight for those black thorns. It's like a supernatural scavenger hunt.
It really is. And she and her talking cat, they make quite the team.
Resourceful, that's what they are.
And brave, not everyone would be comfortable wandering around a graveyard at midnight.
Not me, that's for sure. So the witches, they hold up their end of the bargain.
They do, but with a little twist, of course.
Oh, there's always a twist with witches. What is it?
Well, they transform the thistledown into wool and flax tow for spinning.
Clever.
The wheat straw into yarn for weaving.
So it's not just about the magic, it's about skill, too.
Exactly. The witches are giving her the tools, but she still has to know how to use them.
It's a test and a gift all at the same time.
Right, so armed with these enchanted supplies, she heads off to the king's castle for the contest, all while maintaining strict silence.
Can you imagine? A silent weaver in a room full of chattering courtiers.
I know, it's got to be a sight to behold. The king thinks she's being arrogant. Some of the lords think she's lost her voice. The ladies are just completely baffled.
And amidst all this confusion, she just gets to work.
Yep, the spinning wheels whirring, the looms clacking, those enchanted needles are flying. It's like a one-woman weaving factory.
And the other contestants are just watching in amazement. Right.
Oh, yeah. One of them even gives up, realizing she has no chance.
But there's another layer to this story, too, isn't there? A romantic one.
You're right. We can't forget about the king's young laird.
So what happens with him? Does he try to break the spell, or is he just as smitten with her as everyone else?
Well, he definitely tries to get her to talk.
Oh, I bet he does. He probably can't resist a good challenge.
He tries everything, compliments, questions. He even proposes to her.
No. Right there in the middle of the contest.
You know it, but she just shakes her head and smiles, never uttering a single word.
Wow, her silence, it's driving him crazy, but in a good way, right?
I think so. It's like her strength and her mystery, they're just too much for him to resist.
The classic fairy tale trope with a twist usually is the beautiful voice or the witty banter that wins over the prince. But here, it's her silence.
It speaks volumes, doesn't it? It says more about her character than any words could.
Okay, so the contest ends. Does she win?
She does. The judges are blown away. They've never seen anything like it.
And she did it all without saying a word. That's incredible.
Yeah.
But hold on, there was that condition the witches gave her, right?
Oh, yeah. The silence. She can't speak a word while she's at the castle.
What happens? Does she make it out without breaking the spell?
It's a close call, but she almost makes it.
Almost. So something happens.
Well, imagine it. She's been silent for days. She's exhausted. She's just won this huge contest.
She's probably running on pure adrenaline at this point.
Exactly. And then the young laird, he approaches her one last time.
He doesn't give up, does he?
Nope. He's determined to win her over.
So what does he do?
He pours his heart out, tells her how much he admires her strength and her skill, and then he proposes again.
And she...
She forgets all about the wishes warning and blurts out, "I'll have you."
Oh no, she broke the silence. What happens? Does everything unravel?
Surprisingly, no. The clothes don't turn back into thistledown and straw. The magic doesn't backfire in a dramatic way.
But something changes.
You can sense it, right? A shift in the atmosphere, like something's been broken.
But not in a bad way.
No, not at all. It's more like she's crossed a threshold, she's voiced her desire, and now there's no going back.
It's a pivotal moment. She might have used magic to win the contest. But it's her own choice, her own voice, that really determines her fate.
It's a powerful message about taking control of your own story, even in a world full of magic and fairy tales.
And doesn't lead to disaster, right? She gets her happy ending.
She does. She marries the young laird, and they live happily ever after, proving that sometimes breaking the rules can lead to the best possible outcome.
I love that it's like a reminder that it's okay to speak up, to make your own choices, even if it means going against the grain.
So are we ready for a tale that's a little spookier?
Oh, yes. Bring on the ghosts.
Well, ghosts, or boggles, I should say.
Boggles.
That's what they call them in this story, the boggles from the Hoff.
The Hoff, what's that?
It's an old graveyard in Dundee.
Oh, a graveyard. That sounds promising. Spooky and atmospheric, what kind of mischief do these boggles get up to?
Well, our main character is this young doctor, a scholar who's inherited his family home.
Okay, sounds peaceful enough so far.
He's got dreams of writing a book, settling into a quiet life.
But the Bogles have other plans.
You know it, they're constantly disrupting him, slamming doors, making weird noises.
Oh no, poor guy. Not exactly conducive to a productive writing environment.
Nope, not at all. And it gets worse. They start following him around, peering over his shoulder while he's writing.
Really, like giving him unsolicited feedback on his manuscript.
Pretty much. You can imagine how frustrating that would be.
Oh, I can only imagine. A writer's worst nightmare.
He tries to ignore them at first, hoping they'll just go away, but they don't. They just get bolder.
So what does he do? Does he call in a priest or maybe a witch or something?
Well, he tries hiring new housekeepers, thinking that a fresh face might scare the boggles off.
Good idea. Maybe someone who's not afraid of a little ghostly company.
But no one lasts. The boggles are just too much for them.
Oh, it's like a revolving door of terrified housekeepers.
And word gets around town that his house is haunted, so no one wants to work for him.
So he's stuck, a lonely scholar, with a house full of mischievous boggles and no one to help him.
It seems pretty hopeless, but then remember the red-haired lass from the ferry, the one who didn't believe in boggles?
Oh, right, the one with the granny who knew all about them. Yeah, what about her?
Well, the doctor, he's desperate, so he tracks her down and begs for her help.
Hoping she's inherited some of her granny's wisdom.
Exactly. And you know what? She agrees.
She does. But she didn't believe in boggles, did she?
Well, she might not believe in them, but she's not afraid of a little hard work, and she sees that his house is a mess.
So she takes a practical approach. She's not going to try to banish them with spells and incantations.
Nope, she just rolls up her sleeves and gets to work.
Good for her. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best.
She throws open the windows, letting in the sunlight and fresh air. She scrubs, she polishes, she transforms that gloomy old house into a bright and welcoming home.
It's like she's fighting the darkness with light and cleanliness.
And you know what? It works, the boggles. They hate it.
They can't stand all that sunshine and fresh air.
Nope, they're driven back little by little until they have nowhere less to go but the attic.
I love that it's like she's reclaiming the house for the living.
And what's really interesting is that she doesn't try to get rid of them entirely. She just makes it so uncomfortable for them that they decide to go back to the graveyard.
So she's not trying to eradicate them, just coexist peacefully.
It's a nice way to think about it, finding a way to live in harmony with the things that go bump in the night.
And what about the doctor? How does he handle all of this?
Well, while the Bogles are retreating, something else is blossoming.
Something romantic.
You got it. He finds himself falling for the red-haired lass.
Of course he does. Who wouldn't? She's brave, she's practical, she's not afraid of a few boggles.
And she sees something in him, too, beneath his bookish exterior.
A classic opposites attract, with a little supernatural twist.
They fall in love, they get married, and the Bogles. They never return, banished by the power of love and a well-kept home.
That's a beautiful ending. It reminds us that sometimes the best way to deal with the things that scare us is to create a life full of joy and light.
And a good housekeeper. Okay, are you ready for one last tale?
Absolutely. Lead the way. I'm ready for anything at this point.
Well, this one takes us from the city streets of Edinburgh to the wilds of the Highlands. Get ready to meet a shoemaker and a wildcat.
A shoemaker and a wildcat. That's an interesting combination. What's the story called?
The shoemaker and the Sithichin.
Sithichin. What are those?
That's the Gaelic word for fairies, but these aren't your cute little Tinkerbell fairies. These are powerful, ancient beings, deeply connected to the land.
Oh, I'm intrigued already. Tell me more.
So our shoemaker, Rabbi, he's tired of city life.
Who isn't these days?
He longs for adventure, so he packs his bags, grabs his tools, and heads for the Highlands.
The classic hero's journey. I love it.
And while he's traveling, he stumbles upon a cave.
Wait a minute. Is this just any cave, or is it...
It's a fairy cave, the home of the Sithichin.
Oh, no. You know what they say about fairy caves, right? Never go in.
Well, Rabbi, he doesn't heed that advice. He's a bit too curious for his own good.
Classic mistake. And what happens?
The fairies capture him and bring him before their queen.
Oh, dear. That doesn't sound good. What does the queen do to him?
Well, she doesn't punish him right away. She's more intrigued than angry.
She sees something special in this city shoemaker.
I think so. She gives him a task to make a pair of shoes for her.
Shoes for a fairy queen. That's quite the challenge.
It is, but not just any shoes. She wants shoes that shimmer and sparkle, shoes that will allow her to dance among the stars.
Wow, talk about pressure. What does Rabbi do? He can't exactly pop down to the local cobbler's supply shop for that kind of stuff?
No, he's completely out of his depth. But as he's lamenting his predicament, he encounters a wildcat.
A wildcat in a fairy cave.
Now, in many Highland tales, wildcats are seen as guardians, protectors of the land and its secrets.
So not just any wildcat, a magical one, perhaps.
Maybe, maybe not. But it definitely knows more about the fairies than Rabbi does.
I see. So this wildcat, does it help him?
It does, but for a price, of course.
There's always a price in these stories. What does the wildcat want?
It's not about gold or jewels. It wants Rabbi to learn from the land, to understand the rhythms of nature.
That's a beautiful request. It's like it wants to share its knowledge, to open his eyes to a different way of seeing the world.
So Rabbi agrees, and under the wildcat's guidance, he sets about gathering the materials he needs.
Oh, I love this part. What does he use?
He finds supple leather from a stag, shimmering scales from a salmon, dewdrops that sparkle like diamonds.
It's like he's weaving the essence of the Highlands into these shoes.
Exactly. And as he works, the wildcat teaches him about the forest, about the magic that flows through the earth.
It's a beautiful transformation, isn't it?
It really is, and by the time he's finished the shoes, they're not just shoes anymore, they're works of art, infused with the magic of the wildcat and the spirit of the Highland.
And the queen, she loves them.
She's delighted, she puts them on and dances among the stars, just like she wanted.
A happy ending for everyone. Rabbi gets his freedom and a whole new perspective on life.
It's a reminder that sometimes the greatest adventures take us not to faraway lands, but to the hidden depths of our own hearts, and that magic can be found in the most unexpected places, even in a pair of shoes made for a fairy queen.
Well said, and I think that's a perfect note on which to end our deep dive into the world of Scottish folktales.
We've journeyed through forests and sailed across seas, encountered fairies and brownies and mischievous wildcats.
We've learned about the power of storytelling, the importance of balance, and the magic that can be found in the everyday.
These tales, they've been passed down for centuries, and yet they still resonate with us today.
They speak to our deepest hopes and fears, our desire for connection and meaning, our sense of wonder at the world around us.
So to our listener, we hope you've enjoyed this adventure as much as we have.
May these stories stay with you, spark your imagination, and remind you that even in the darkest of times, there's always a glimmer of magic waiting to be discovered.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep that spark of wonder alive, as they say in the Highlands. May your paths be bright and your stories be many. From city streets to the wild Highlands. All right, and I'm intrigued. What's this tale about?
Oh, you're in for a treat. It's called The Shoemaker and the Scythian.
The shoemaker and the what now?
The Scythian, it's Gaelic for fairies, but these aren't your garden variety fairies, oh no.
Okay, so we're talking powerful, ancient magic here.
Exactly. Deeply connected to the land, fierce protectors of their domain.
Sounds intense. All right, so who's this shoemaker? What's he doing mixed up with these Scythian?
His name's Ravi, and like a lot of us, he's just a bit fed up with city life.
I feel that. The daily grind can get to you.
So he decides to pack up his tools and head for the Highlands, looking for adventure, maybe a bit of peace and quiet too.
The call of the wild, I get it. But isn't that how a lot of these stories start? With someone venturing into territory they maybe shouldn't?
You know your folklore, that's for sure. And, well, Ravi, he stumbles upon a cave while he's traveling.
Let me guess. Not just any cave.
You know it. This is the home of the Scythian.
The fairy folk. You said they were serious magic.
And fiercely protective, you'd think someone would put up a sign or something.
Right. Beware of fairy, enter at your own risk.
But no, Ravi, bless his heart, he decides to go in.
Oh, Ravi, what are you doing?
Curiosity, that's what. And, well, let's just say the fairies, they aren't too thrilled about this unexpected visitor.
Yeah, I bet they don't get many tourists.
They capture him, bring him before their queen.
Oh, this is bad.
It could be. But this queen, she's not just about handing out punishments. She's got a bit of a sense of humor, I think.
Humor? How so?
She decides to give Ravi a task.
A task? What kind of task?
She wants him to make her a pair of shoes.
Shoes, huh? Seems a bit simple for a fairy queen.
Oh, but these aren't just any shoes. She wants shoes that shimmer and sparkle. Shoes that will let her dance among the stars.
Oh, wow, that's a tall order. Talk about pressure. This is his life we're talking about.
But Ravi, resourceful fellow that he is, he doesn't give up.
I guess when you're facing down a fairy queen, you gotta find that inner strength.
And as luck would have it, he encounters a wildcat in the cave.
A wildcat? Now, those are fierce creatures. I wouldn't want to run into one in a dark cave.
But in many Highland tales, they're seen as guardians, protectors of the land and its secrets.
So maybe not such a bad encounter after all.
This wildcat, it senses Ravi's desperation, maybe sees a bit of itself in him, that yearning for the wild.
Kindred spirits, huh?
And it decides to help him. But like any good magical helper, there's a price.
What does it want?
Yeah.
Ravi's probably got nothing of value to a wildcat.
It's not about material things, this wildcat. It wants Rabbi to really see the Highlands, to understand the rhythms of nature, to open his eyes to the magic that's all around him.
That's a pretty profound request. It's like a test, but also a gift.
Exactly. And Ravi, he agrees. He's willing to learn, to change.
I'm guessing this is where the real transformation begins.
You got it. Under the wildcat's guidance, Ravi starts gathering materials for the shoes.
What does he find? I can't imagine a regular shoemaker's kid is going to cut it here.
Oh no, we're talking supple leather from a stag, shimmering scales from a salmon, dewdrops that catch the light like diamonds.
Wow, it sounds like he's crafting pure magic.
And as he works, the wildcat teaches him about the language of the birds, the whispers of the wind, the secrets hidden in the heart of the forest.
He's not just making shoes anymore, he's learning a whole new way of being.
He's connecting to the wildness within himself, tapping into something ancient and powerful.
And the shoes, do they live up to the queen's expectations?
Oh, they do. When she puts them on, she's radiant. She can indeed dance among the stars, just like she wanted.
So a happy ending all around. Ravi gets his freedom, the queen gets her magical shoes, and he's not the same man who walked into that cave.
He returns to the city, but he carries the Highlands with him, in his heart, in his work, in his way of seeing the world.
It's like he's found a bit of magic that he can never lose.
That's the power of these stories, isn't it? They transport us, they teach us, they remind us that there's wonder to be found everywhere, even in the most ordinary of things.
We've explored so many amazing tales in this deep dive, from forests to seas, from castles to humble cottages.
We've met brave knights and clever lasses, kind-hearted lairds, and mischievous fairies.
And through it all, we've seen how these ancient stories, passed down for generations, can still speak to us today.
They remind us of the importance of courage, of kindness, of finding balance in a world that's constantly shifting.
They teach us to respect the power of nature, to listen to the whispers of the wind, to believe in the magic that's all around us.
So to our listener, we hope you've enjoyed this journey into the heart of Scottish folklore.
May these tales stay with you, inspire you, and remind you that even in the most ordinary of days, there's always a bit of wonder waiting to be discovered.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep that spark of imagination alive.
As they say in the Highlands, may your paths be bright and your stories be many.